Hello, 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 and welcome back to an all new episode here on the Desensitized channel. As always, my name is Darius Cook, joined ever by the Dan Cast. What's up?
What's up?
What, what's up, Buttercup?
Nothing much, man. Just another beautiful day here in cold Florida.
Yeah, that's right. We've got cold veins here today. We are back to talk about one of our favorite shows, Castlevania Nocturne Season 2, just dropped on Netflix. So we are here to break it all down. This is the show where Cass will put his vein in ya if you're not careful. So Castlevania Season 2, let's get right into it. What'd you think?
Loved it, man. I've been such a fan of Castlevania since the first part. Just every time I see a release of like the new season or anything, I get so excited. I also binge through it so quickly. I hate that I do
Hmm.
that, but it's like I can't help myself. Um, with Nocturne specifically, I remember I watched a couple episodes with you guys. Everyone got ahead of me, and then one night I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch a couple episodes, and I'm like, I'm not going to bed until I finish this, and I got like 4 hours of sleep for work, but it was worth every second.
Yeah, Castlevania is just a gift that keeps on giving. Like every season that comes out of the show, it's fantastic. It's peak. I can't imagine it getting better. And then the next season comes out and it's somehow even better. The animation, the writing, the voice acting, fight choreography. I mean, there's really not an aspect where this show is lacking. I can't think of any.
No, no, not at all. Like maybe some of the dialogue is kind of whatever, but like other than that, like I can't really think of one.
Yeah. So just diving into the season, season two of Nocturne, we picked up exactly where we left off with our characters all together. They've just lost essentially the battle, but they're gearing up for what will be the climactic war at the end of the season. Season one's conclusion saw Richter coming into his full power. Now he's able to use all the different elements as a mage that he is. And of course, our team was now joined by Alucard, who just rolled up at the end. So kicking off into the season, we've got Richter, we've got Annette, we have Maria, who is heartbroken over her mother's transformation into a vampire, and then of course we have Alucard joining the team along with Grandpa Belmont to round out honestly a pretty stacked team, especially when you compare it to Castlevania Season One. It just being the three characters, and now we have like six characters who are all fighting, seven if you count the religious knight, who's kind of relevant. Uh, but yeah, we have a full team in this season. What did you think about like the overall team?
It was really good. I think they all kind of played their part. Obviously, like I can't remember the name of him, but like the Templar, he didn't do all too much other than like he was kind of like the plot point that like drove Ulrichs to kind of assist the team
Orlocks.
to Ulrox, yeah, sorry, um, to like actually be think more than just like himself. And he
Hmm.
actually ended up like helping out the team, even though he was kind of slated as the main villain at a point in the first couple episodes because he killed Richter's mother.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, he really was like the kind of driving point between like Ulrox's whole like character development for the most part.
Yeah, I'd actually like to dive into that character pairing real quick and just their plot as they develop it throughout. I felt like that knight, I don't know his name either. I felt like he was a lot more relevant in season one. At least he was like chopping off the heads of vampires and stuff. This season, he actually doesn't physically do anything other than develop his romance with Orlox. He's trying to reject those feelings. He doesn't want to admit those feelings, and he's kind of there for Maria, but I thought that he'd stand more firmly as like a member of the team when it came to the final battle, but he really didn't. And we just saw him kind of rejecting those feelings he has towards Orlox because he's, conflicted over his faith in religion and, this temptation of these feelings that he has towards his vampire. Seeing how it ended with him being mortally wounded and Orlox turning him into a vampire is a very interesting thread to end off on. It seems like they're both now fully indulging in their romance. So, what did you think of that plot overall?
I think it was really good. I think it was interesting to see him kind of like struggling with his faith almost like especially towards the end. You would think as like a man of the cloth, like, you know, he seemed pretty not eager, but like willing to die on that battle. And then when he was actually
Mhm.
dying, he was like, I'm scared. Like I don't want to die. Like that was like a pretty
Because if his faith is real, he's thinking that for whatever sins he's committed or getting with Orlocks, he's going to hell.
yeah.
So
Um
by the logic of your faith, you wouldn't want to go.
exactly. So it was definitely an interesting moment for sure. And then especially seeing Orox um transform him into a vampire. That was also interesting. Um but yeah, I feel like the cast was pretty strong. Supporting characters. I mean, um Maria, initially her ability was, it was cool, don't get it wrong, but it didn't seem like it would really help that much in the grand scheme of things. And
Hmm.
then you saw like the extent of it and you're like, oh, this is really cool.
Yeah.
uh, and then same thing with well, not the same thing, it's essentially Net's abilities have always been awesome. Being like a metal bender, she's done some really cool stuff with it.
Hmm.
Alucard just always cool. Has so many abilities, and they're each equally as cool. And then of course, um, Richter gets his buff where he gets to start using magic, and he incorporates it real well with his just standard kit.
Dude, the team this season is overpowered. Like the fact that you
So
have two
sick.
Belmonts that are sick fighters and just have every like release of element at their disposal is absolutely ridiculous. And that is fully a metal bender. And Maria is just summoning demons from the grave. I mean, it's insane the kit that they have this season. Um, I think that the way that we should approach this is dive into each character and kind of talk about how their plot is handled throughout the season. And the one I want to focus on is Maria, and by extension, her mother, Tara. Um, you know, at the end, we'll talk about this a little more about like, is this setting up a future for the series or not? I think the most plot that they're leaving hanging is this dynamic between Maria and her mother, Tara. But seeing Maria's journey this season was actually the most compelling thing for me. Her being at the lowest of the low at the start, with her mother having been turned into a vampire, and her, she finds out that the abbot was her father, and her just like learning all these sick and corrupted truths and how that manifests in her abilities and how like now she's summoning darker and stronger creatures because it's a reflection of her own emotional state and the way that she can control them. Her just corruption as a character, and I feel like they poured so much energy into animating her face. Like the faces that she was making this season were really communicating the depths that she was struggling through. You could really see this almost like twisted corruption starting to build just on how her face was setting in duller moments.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, you said it pretty well, honestly. And also kind of the dynamic with her mother, one having like initially dying in front of her, and then coming back, and then also struggling with like, oh, is she like, is this actually her? Is this just like a vampire? Is she gonna bite me? And then everyone else around her is like, back off, like you can't trust
Hmm.
that thing. Um, yeah, she definitely had a lot of things going on her end, compared to a lot of the other cast. So yeah, she definitely had like a lot of growth. It was definitely very interesting to watch. It was cool when she like kind of flipped the switch and she was able to convert like the dark beings into like more light ones.
Hmm.
That way, like they would actually, be she would actually be able to control them into like they're obviously not like an evil entity anymore.
Dude, the moment where her mom rejected her in the forest and was just like, we need to separate in order to find ourselves, which I thought was very true. That was a very compelling moment. Her just crying after her mom and her mom just sprinting away from her. Oh my gosh, what a gut punch. Like that was probably the most like the emotionally raw moment of the season. And then likewise, Maria coming into her full darkness power and summoning that dragon to kill her father. And then that dragon turning on her. What an awesome sequence. I mean, the fact that she is summoning dragons is crazy. Cool evolution for this character. I could never have imagined in season one of Nocturne that this is where we would go with this character.
It's crazy. And the final fight when the dragon was like good, I was like, I was like really feeling for this dragon. I'm like, if this dragon dies, I'm gonna be so mad. Like this dragon is so sick. I don't want it to die. I was treating it like a damn dog. I was, every time it got hurt, I'm like, no, chill, chill, chill. Don't don't kill him.
I'm surprised it didn't die, and that is one of the critiques I have for this show overall, is that we have this fully stacked cast and none of them die. I mean, I think Grandpa Belmont could have died. I think that the dragon could have died, certainly. I even think that the demon who sings and is like a shining ray of hope, I think he could have died for an emotional impact. It just feels like we didn't have many consequences this season as far as the characters that we actually like.
True, true. I guess that goes to say how OP they were,
Yeah.
but
Fair.
they were like pretty much able to deal with every situation for the most part. What
Well,
about
while Maria
yeah?
is having the worst time of her life, Richter and Annette are just off honeymooning together and falling in love. Uh, what did you think about Annette's plotline this season?
Honestly, it was really interesting, especially like in the beginning. You don't really know like she's having like a full schizo moment, seeing all like
Yeah.
the souls like talking to her, and then her whole moment where she was like versing to like different planes. Like they kind of acknowledged that like all the other mythical gods like exist, but they're kind of in their own like, jurisdictions and planes, which was pretty cool. um
Hmm.
Her kind of having to go find Sekhmet through that whole thing and like seeing her own version of like I guess Creole gods was pretty
Hmm.
cool. But yeah, like I think we talked about it earlier, like you weren't a big fan of her whole fight with like that lion.
Yeah, I mean, like I appreciate Sekhmet like taking over her body and being relevant in the fight. I thought that was like an interesting and cool plot beat. I personally would have preferred if Annette was herself during that fight. See, we saw all these characters have their coolest moments in the final two episodes in that fight. Maria summoning the dragon and controlling it. Grandpa Belmont having his powers back and fighting. Richter doing so many cool moments and everything. We saw these characters become their best versions of themselves. But Annette, her power set, it was a cool fight in this astral projection world. I don't feel like we saw her reach the peak of her powers in that final couple episodes the same way we got to see the other characters. And seeing her fight, what I wish would have happened is don't leave her in that realm. I think that she and Sekhmet could have been like almost combined and then would have been physically present during this fight. So she would have been fighting with her own autonomy, just with this extra glow, and then maybe Sekhmet's voice behind her. So that way she still has her autonomy. She's still fighting with our main cast.
Fair. Yeah, I guess the whole thing is they wanted to make it like this is destroying her body while Sekhmet is in control. So like
Hmm.
essentially her fighting the lion was like her just staying alive, I guess. Yeah, no, it would have been cool to see her like actually fighting just cuz yeah, like you said, everyone's kind of at their peak power.
I wanted to see more of that power set. Honestly, the metal controlling all the swords and stuff. I wanted to see that like taken to the next level.
Yeah, I think they just wanted to like really show how strong Sekhmet was, so they had to have like
Hmm.
Sekhmet in full control. Just they're like pretty much like stun locking the other Sekhmet so they could fight it. Yeah, I get it totally.
To nitpick because otherwise the
Yeah,
series is perfect. I mean, but I just wish we saw a little. I just wish Annette was a part of that battle sequence. I guess.
for sure. Now the biggest thing I think I noticed from this is just how good the choreography is. Like with their power sets, it's like they sat down and brainstormed what's something really cool we could do with this, and then they did it.
Hmm.
Like Richter had all these crazy combos. I feel like he used every part of like every he used his abilities in like every way you could have.
Hmm.
His just he's so sick. Like it's crazy. And then him and Annette like and Alucard, like the movements and the moves that they would do were just so cool and flashy, and just like putting those in the middle of a fight too. Like it was crazy how good the choreography was.
Dude, it's like this show it's knocking it out of the park in multiple ways. It's like taking these power sets and finding the most creative and interesting way to use them. But at the same time, they are obeying the laws of physics so well that like you as a viewer are just tracking it so well. You know, this punch, this momentum is leading in this way, and then I've got ice spikes on the ground that she's rolling into and stuff. Like the way that they put it all together just seems seamless, and it's like executed to the best possible way that it could be. Also, Avatar: The Last Airbender, you need to watch out because the Belmonts and their magic capabilities. Like, I want to know who wins in a fight: Avatar, Aang, or Richter Belmont. Because the way he's busting out, you know, ice dukers and then throwing his fire, zapping his lightning, it's just one after another, man. It's so fluid.
And it's also like they don't ever even like touch on like there being like the only time they touch about there being kind of like a limit is with Ria's mother. She's with the ice umbrella. She's like, I don't know if I can hold it that long. Um,
Mm,
which I'm assuming is pretty long. It's quite a walk, I'd imagine.
yeah, we're like
Um,
talking about going to like the other side of it.
yeah, they're
Right.
not they're not like they're never like, oh man, I'm out of mana. I can't do any more magic. It's like they show no signs of ever having to stop. Like
They
they
had more fight in them for sure.
yeah, like their main issue is like running out of energy, like physical
Mhm.
energy, not like mana. So like I guess they could just kind of cast as many times as they want. I don't think
It's
that's
true. It
ever.
does seem directly tied to their physical energy. It's like when they're out of breath breathing, they can't do it, but like if they catch their breath for a second, they can bust it right back
Yeah.
out.
Also, the fact that Trevor and is the love interest,
What's her name? I don't freaking know. Victoria.
something like Hispanic, I think. I don't remember. But anyways, that whole like link up definitely just like blessed the Belmont bloodline because now
I
they
know,
can just
dude.
do
Most
magic.
important link up ever.
Yeah, no, it's insane. Like that whole that's like it's like when like a 6'5" dude and like a 6'3" woman get together just to create like an all-star baby to be like
Absolutely.
yeah, like that's essentially what it was. Like you just buffed your entire bloodline doing that.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of buffs, I mean, if we look at the future of this franchise, if we're going to the next generation or not, Richter's kid is going to be a light-skinned king who could do the whip, the fighting, the magic, I guess metal control now as well. Talk to ancestors beyond the grave. This light-skinned Belmont's about to pop the fuck off,
Dude,
dude.
I does not need a squad. If he has all those powers, he can just solo everything.
For sure, dude. I don't know if there'll be a future for this franchise or if it'll be that direct or maybe they'll go back in time. I don't know. But I would love to see Alucard kicking it with the light skinned Belmont in the future. That'll be sick.
I really like how I also speaking of that Alucard, like he cool like seeing him like really also kind of go through his own character arc, really,
Hmm.
because he's been traversing the world. He's dealt with many Belmonts, and he's just like in his head, he's like, huh, I guess like this is the way fate is. Like I'm always saving the world with a Belmont on my side. No matter how long it's been, it's always the generation. I'm always with the Belmont, which is pretty cool.
I thought it was pretty beautiful. Like there's
Yeah,
the episode when was meditating and they were kind of hanging out with her body. He does this whole monologue. I think you were just kind of quoting
yeah,
from, and he says, you know, generations always fighting with a Belmont by my side. Isn't that a sort of family? Like
yeah,
he essentially calls Richter his family. He looks over, Richter's asleep. But there were a couple moments like that where the dialogue he was delivering it communicated so much wisdom and perspective, and it had such like a beautiful, like hopeful tone to it.
yeah. And like you can tell, like he really do drive the point home that he's like pretty wise. Like he's spent all this time traveling. He's over 300 years old. Uh, he's seen the world. He's been in these situations. Like he knows what he's talking about. Just an overall super cool character. It's also really fun to always see. He mentioned it, like the Belmonts and me. We're always like they're always quippy, and we always have a back and forth like sarcasm and shit like that. Like that. That's I love that. Um,
The writing team does a good job of capturing the spirit of like I'm watching them interact, Richter and Alucard, and it's somehow reminiscent of Trevor and Alucard's interactions as well. Like you, the viewer, without them, I mean, saying the name Trevor, are thinking of Trevor. Like it invokes it somehow, even though Richter feels like his distinct character.
Yeah, and I think they do a pretty good job at like I feel like a lot of problems sometimes with, like movies or show or like May or whatever is sometimes like they have conversations that don't feel like they would actually like a conversation would go that way in like real life. This one feels
Mhm.
like it's like back forth, like quick sarcasm, like
Sure.
that's like that feels like a real comment. But something interesting that I saw is I watched a video. I don't know how accurate it is, but I heard that they would love to. They're really trying to take on Berserk. So
Okay, the
they've been
studio wants to tackle Berserk. Okay.
yeah, but they've been apparently they've been trying it, but they haven't been given the person that was talking like I don't know why they wouldn't jump on it. Like they have a proven track record. They great animation, and like nobody wants to do Berserk because
Mm.
one like when you sign up to do Berserk, you are in it for like 10 years. Like it is so long. It is not ended yet,
Sure. Yeah.
and two like the fan base is so like it's such a big and like dedicated fan base that like you are there's going to be a lot of scrutiny if you mess it up.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be breathing down your neck for sure.
So like animation studios don't want to touch it with like a 10-foot pole, but apparently this
Package.
and I think they would do an amazing job. Um I mean, it can't be any worse than this like show of Berserk and the 3D animation was horrible.
Oh no, I mean Castlevania has to be the best application for a job I've ever seen. Like give them Berserk, like absolutely.
Yeah, and
Let
like
them run with it.
and Berserk's dark and gritty and tackles a lot of adult themes, but so does Castlevania. Like you see a little bit of everything in the like um
Oh yeah, tonally it feels like a layup. It's almost like too similar.
yeah, exactly. And but also at the same time, like there's so many Castlevania games. I'm I don't know how many there are, but I know there's a ton. So this is
Yeah,
definitely like they've got plenty of source material to dig into. They could even do spin-off. I'm sure that would be perfectly fine. Because I mean,
for
just
sure.
from I haven't seen the show, of course, or I haven't played the game. But just when I was like kind of looking, refreshing the names, like I said, like it looked like Maria was, or no, sorry, Annette was like a white blonde girl, and I don't
Hmm.
think she has this whole Creole background in the game. So there's probably room for like a spin-off
Mm,
where they can kind of separate from the games for a little bit. I do think they also just have a ton of source material.
sure. That is one thing, and after this, I want to loop back and talk about some of the villains of the season. But just looking towards the future of Castlevania, I emotionally feel like they are setting some stuff up for the future. I don't know if like they're just setting up like let's say we jump in, like the show likes to do, multiple generations later. You can do is like fill in the blank for some of the stuff that they're setting up here. Or I don't know if they're setting up a direct sequel series or what. But Maria, the staging of Maria's character in the last few shots that we get of her, I feel like there's a lot more coming with her. They specifically show her looking at the stages of the revolution. They're decapitating people, like they're setting up plot for her to do work in this city still moving. And I feel like she's going to take an evil turn. Her mom is still around in the same place. Like they make sure to show you that she's around and has like a insidious look on her face. And, you know, obviously Richter and Annette are going off to her homeland to fight for them. I don't feel like I need to see that story, but everything that they're leaving back home with Maria's character feels like there's more on the table. I mean, what do you think? Are we getting more of this story of Castlevania?
Um, they definitely have they left a lot of room to do that. My only issue is like what is the main threat at this point? Like they just fought a god. Like
Mhm.
what could even hold a candle to it? I mean, I guess if Maria is like by herself for the most part with like maybe the other Belmont and whoever else, then it's not
Mhm.
as easy. Um, but yeah, I wonder who the big bad would be.
Yeah, I'm not sure. That's why I'm leaning more towards like, let's say this picks up a generation later or even two, then here's what I picture. Let's say it's Richter's kid. I think Maria turns evil. She's taken over. She wants to put things in her own view, and now she's summoning creatures to do her bidding, and he has to go up against her. Or she establishes something that gets out of her head, and it becomes something. She passes on this ability to summon these night creatures. I don't know, or she leaves open too much access, and it establishes a new threat to handle. down the line, and then maybe her mom Tara is still around because she's a vampire. Like what I'm thinking is they're leaving open plots so that way they can write in some story later on to pick up generations later.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could definitely see that. Like, especially if they do like a generation there, like later, like maybe Maria isn't really the big bad, but like you said, maybe she passed away and someone picked up where she left off, but in a negative way. Or you could even do the story of Annette and Richter in
You could, I would watch it
in
for sure.
America, especially since we've established that every culture has their own gods and they do exist. With that, um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like we don't need any more of Annette and Richter. Like I feel like their story wrapped up pretty well. You know, they've got their happily ever after. Um, Obviously, they hinted that there's a ton of fighting they have to do over in the Americas, but
Hmm.
same thing here in Europe and France. They got the whole French Revolution, so there's a lot of different ways they can go. Um, Even if they do a whole different series, even if it's like something like Blood of Zeus, what they did before, I'm whatever this studio produces, I will be there on day one watching.
100%. Uh, Real quick before we head out, I do want to talk about the villains because that's something we've kind of lacking in here.
Oh yeah.
I think they did a good job giving flashbacks to the history of Drolta and how she's like really been into place for this segment revival and using Ursabet as kind of the platform for that, or the vessel, if you will. That was interesting. It was compelling. Shocked when they immediately revived Drolta with the night creature mission that the priest has. I thought that was interesting, and I think they definitely delivered as pretty good villains. They don't stand out quite as much as Dracula did, to be perfectly honest, because I really felt like we got his perspective more. But overall, I think that they served the vehicle of this story perfectly well. What did you think about them?
Yeah, they with Dracula, they definitely were wanting like a villain that you can kind of relate to. This
Hmm.
one, I believe they just wanted like a big evil entity, like pure evil,
Yeah.
like straight up the worst parts of Sekhmet, like
Mm.
embodied.
Hmm.
But yeah, like Drolta was really cool. I wish they could have explained a little bit more how that worked, how they were able to revive her, because to our
A little
knowledge, they
quick.
really could only do like humans and turn them into just like night creatures. Also, like the fact that a lot of night creatures have sentience. I just kind of chalked it up to like the machine that they were using was like different than like how they were doing it before, whereas like they had like a dagger or like a hammer
Mm.
and their own tool, and they're almost
Right.
doing it like on an anvil. But yeah, I mean, Erzbet, like she didn't have too much screen time. It was more Jolta, and I think they really kind of drove that home in the second part. It's like Erzbet was more so like almost like a puppet to Jolta,
Hmm.
to create her version of Sekhmet that she envisioned in her head. Um, and then obviously at the end you see like Sekhmet's like, no, you were like not doing me any favors. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it was really cool. And it's funny uh, you know, Abbot Emmanuel, the father was always. You always see like the people part of the church are low key just the bad guys, which low key back in those days they kind of were. They're doing everything but their damn faith, but following the faith. And it's always
Yeah.
I've committed these horrible atrocities. Uh, Let me do my Hail Marys real quick. Hopefully he forgives me. Like it's like you guys do anything but follow the word. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
Yeah, the Abbot, I thought there was really interesting commentary in season one with the Abbot because they were really like digging into his perspective on his faith. By the time we get around to his character in season two, he's just like he's lost the plot completely. He's just like, nope, I'm just doing this. I'm just doing this. I'm
it's
going to hell. Like he's just completely like
yeah.
submitted to his role in all of this. What do we think about when he actually gets killed and this shadowy figure comes to claim him? And then we see implications of this shadowy figure a couple times throughout. What is this plot? Am I missing something?
Because Olrox seems to know who it is.
Right.
I forget.
Is it just Satan?
No, I think he says it's not the devil. It's something else. It's some other entity. I can't remember what it is for the life of me. But yeah, they definitely, the fact that they kept showing this figure showing up periodically, especially when like people were gonna die and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That might be the next big bad. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, they're just like setting up some type of thread to pick up later on.
Yeah. Also, like, um, that thing that it was creepy. Like the like faces, and then also you can see like a smile behind the back of it. Like that was actually pretty. Like I love the design of that. That was like actually pretty creepy.
Yeah, sleep paralysis demon coded for sure.
It's like nothing's more creepy than a weird smile. That's for sure.
Hmm, sure.
But honestly, I think that probably about wraps it for me. I don't know what else I have to say.
I have to admit something. I
Hmm.
don't know if I learned this before in one of the early seasons of the original Castlevania and I forgot it, but I felt like a doofus figuring this out halfway through this season. It's the first time it occurred to me that Alucard is Dracula backwards. Is that obvious? Am I not blowing your
Yeah,
mind?
yeah. I no, I think I feel like they mentioned that even in the show.
Hey, I don't know. I have to imagine I was smart enough to figure it out at some point, but it was shocking to me when I stumbled upon this information while watching. I was like, Alucard's such a weird name, such an odd name. I'm just thinking about the phonetics of it, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's Dracula backwards. So yeah, if anyone at home can relate, maybe I got to be blowing somebody's here, right? Of all the if of any views that we get here, if I just brought this to your attention, drop it in the comments, please.
They would have had to have not ever played Castlevania growing up. And also, I think I learned because I didn't play Castlevania growing up, but there was an Overwatch content creator named Alucard that played like
Mm,
Genji,
okay.
and I used to watch him all the time. And then like maybe in the comments or at some point he mentioned like that's how that name came to be. I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. I think it sounds cooler than Dracula. I think Alucard is actually a pretty sick name.
It's a sick name. It's made less sick when you know that it's just that backwards, I feel like.
You don't think about that. You just roll with the cool name. But
Imagine if Trevor named his kid Rev
Revert,
Revert.
just kind of
Anyways, Rovert is what it would be. Rovert.
yeah,
All
that
right,
would
we've
be.
overstayed our welcome.
All right.
All right, well, thank you for listening to another video here on the Desensitized channel. That was it for Castlevania. If we get any more Castlevania in the future, you can bet your bottom dollar we'll be back here.
Damn
But for
right.
now, that's all.
All righty. See you guys later.
Peace out. All right, just put in your vampire teeth. That would have been a good bit.
You have to get some like really good ones. I feel like for them to like not impede your like speaking.
All right, just talking a vampire accent.
I am a vampire. I can't
All
do
right.
that.